Did you know that just because you're an attorney, you can't necessarily practice anywhere you want? So you have to be licensed in the state or court that you want to work in, and something that a lot of people may not know about. So we're going to talk about that today. Welcome back to the Lacrosse Lawyer. I'm attorney Craig Steger, practicing in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. How are you today, Leah?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. The weather here in the Midwest had such promise a week or two ago. It was cold and snowy, and now it's warm and rainy.
Yep.
So enough to get my kids got school got called early today. So I don't like the ice, and I don't like the fog and the warm temperatures. So, but we'll always complain about the weather. So
it's Wisconsin, isn't it? So
yeah,
major topic.
Yep. So what are we talking about today, Leah?
So with these three states being different states, obviously, and not including Illinois, what are the key discrepancies between the licensing that goes on between all three of those?
So there's a lot of things that are similar, and then there's a few differences. So I think it's easiest to think about it by backing up a little bit. So all lawyers have to go to, maybe there's states that they still have more of like an apprenticeship path, but basically all lawyers have to go to law school, have to go to an accredited or non-accredited law school. But you go to law school, it's typically 3 years if you do it full time. And then in most states, not including Wisconsin, you have to take a bar exam when you're done. And the bar exam usually is a 2-day thing, takes place usually the summer after you graduate law school, and you take the bar exam in the state or states that you want to practice in. So that's how I got admitted to Wisconsin. And then in most states, you can, after so many years, you can motion into other states. So you have to request permission to appear. You have to go through a very, very extensive background check. They check every place you've worked, every place you've lived. If you have any criminal record, traffic violations, things like that. So you go through an extensive background check. So the path that I took is I took the bar exam in Wisconsin because I didn't go to school in Wisconsin. And then based on my score in the bar exam, I was able to automatically get into Minnesota after going through an application. I didn't have to take another bar exam. And then after I'd been practicing, I think for 5 years, I was able to seek admission into Iowa. So that's kind of how you get into states. So each state has its own rules of professional conduct that you have to follow, qualifications for being admitted, and then you have to have ongoing education and training. We call that continuing legal education, CLE. So that's probably the biggest difference in the states is the CLE requirements and timing of it. So, and it gets really complicated for me because in Wisconsin, I have to report my CLEs every 2 years. Iowa, it's every year, and Minnesota, it's every 3 years. Wisconsin and Iowa are, at the end of the December, and Minnesota's in August. I have no idea why they picked August, but it's a random August. So that's kind of the biggest difference for maintaining admission. But once you're in, that's kind of all you have to do. You don't have to, otherwise it's pretty much the same.
So you don't have to keep winning cases or getting good settlements to stay in.
No, just
Not
don't want to get
performance.
as long as you don't get disciplined. So yeah, so that's kind of how you get admitted. There are other ways to get admitted. We call that pro hoc vice. It's a Latin term. I think it's for this matter or something. Which I've done, and so sometimes, especially lawyers that handle kind of unique cases or special type of cases like asbestos cases or products liability cases that has kind of a national practice, can appear on a particular case in a court, but you have to have a local attorney that's licensed in that jurisdiction basically request your admission, and they kind of have to oversee you, and you're only admitted for that case, and the judge typically that's assigned to the case has to approve it.
And this is what you typically do for cases in which state? Do you have one over the other that you invite other attorneys to help you with?
I do it in all three states, probably more so in Wisconsin than the other states. And like I'm the only attorney here that's licensed in Iowa, for example. So sometimes if it's a big case and I need help, I'll bring one of my partners or associates in on a pro hoc vice basis in Iowa. So
another Wisconsin-based question. So we had talked about this right before we recorded, but the Wisconsin diploma privilege. Do you want to talk to our listeners about what that is?
Yeah, I wish I didn't know about that before I went to law school. So Wisconsin has what's called a diploma privilege, and I think maybe Louisiana does or did. Basically to incentivize people to go to law school in Wisconsin and practice in Wisconsin. If you go to law school in Wisconsin, I think there's just 2 law schools in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin in Madison, and then Marquette is in Milwaukee. If you go to school there, you don't have to take the bar exam when you're done to practice in Wisconsin. Yeah, so I would say it's probably at least 3/4, if not more, of attorneys in Wisconsin went to school in Wisconsin, so they don't have to take the bar exam. So I like to remind them that those of us that took the bar exam prove that we're qualified. But that's just a unique thing in Wisconsin. But it also means if they want to get licensed in other states, they would have to wait the 5 or 6 years, as opposed to, like, for me, I was able to go into Minnesota right away because I took the bar exam and I got a certain score on the multi-state. What's a multi-state? So the bar exam, although this has changed recently, I think they've gone to more of a uniform bar exam. But way back in the day when I took the bar exam, it was a 2-part exam. The first part, I think the first day, is a multi-state portion, and it's a multiple choice. So it's kind of a general concepts of the law, not unique to any particular state. And then the second part, the second day of the exam, is essay that is usually unique to the state that you're going to practice in. And so when I took the bar exam in Wisconsin, because I got a certain score on the multi-state portion, I was able to motion into Minnesota. I just had to take the professional responsibility exam. MPRE, I think is the name of it, or the acronym for it. So otherwise, I was able to get licensed right away in Minnesota. Whereas anyone which is sort of common in Wisconsin, especially if you're on a border area like La Crosse, or like what's the city up across from Minneapolis, but up in that area where it makes sense to have license in both states. If you don't take the bar exam, you either have to take the bar exam in Minnesota, or you have to wait 5 or 6 years in order to get your admission into Minnesota. And
I think it's on your profile on the law firm website, but aren't you admitted into a federal court of some sort? Do you want to talk about how you get admitted into those?
Yeah. So the bar licensure typically for when we say you're licensed in a state, that typically allows you to appear in the state courts in that state. And most states, I think all the states I'm licensed in, are broken down by county. And so in Wisconsin, we call them circuit courts. So like the La Crosse County Circuit Court. In Minnesota, I think they're district courts, again, by county. In Iowa, I think they're called district courts there too, but I think it's district courts there. Again, broken down by county. And so if you're licensed to practice in a particular state, you can go into any of those circuit or district courts and practice law. That's the state level. Every state, and I think some of the territories like Puerto Rico, have federal courts, and it's as the name signifies, it is a federal level court. It's regulated by Congress. It's a separate admission, but you don't have to take a bar exam to practice there, but you do have to go through an application process. So, like, for example, in Wisconsin, there are 2 federal district courts. There's one in Madison, which is called the Western District of Wisconsin, and then the Eastern District is in Milwaukee. I'm not admitted in the Eastern District of Wisconsin. I've never had a case there, but it wouldn't be hard to get admitted there. So I'm admitted in the Western District of Wisconsin, which is necessary. So if I wanted to appear in a lawsuit or file a lawsuit or show up for court on a federal court case, I would have to have that. I'd have to be admitted in that court. Minnesota has just one district court throughout the whole state, so I'm admitted there. I think the main courthouse is in Minneapolis. And then Iowa has 2 federal courts, Northern District, Southern District. I'm admitted in the Northern District, but not the Southern District, which is, I think, Cedar Rapids, I believe. And then sort of to kind of further expand on that, so in each state you have typically sort of the trial courts, circuit court or district court, and then you usually have a court of appeals, and then you have a state Supreme Court, typically in all states. Now, I don't have to separately get admitted to, let's say, the Court of Appeals for Wisconsin. Once I'm admitted there, I can appear in any of the 3 states or any of the 3 levels of court in the state of Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Iowa. Federal court, I believe, is different. So you have the federal district courts, and then they are then within a district. So like Wisconsin's in the 7th district, 7th federal district. I think there's 13 or 14 federal districts around the country.
Any law students watching, you can correct us, comment.
So Wisconsin's in the 7th Circuit. I think the main courthouse is in Chicago. I did actually argue a case in front of the 7th Circuit when I was a younger lawyer. Minnesota and Iowa, for example, are in the 8th Circuit, and I believe the courthouse might be in Kansas City. Don't quote me on that. But I had to seek separate admission, I'm pretty certain, in both the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals and the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. I've had cases in both appeals, and you have to get special admission if you want to appear before the U.S. Supreme Court, which I have. I've never had a case there.
Not yet.
I had a case that was potentially going to go there, so I got my admission, but I've never had to argue a case or appear in a case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. But you have to get special admission in order to have cases in front of the U.S. Supreme Court.
So special admission.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Each of them are different.
Yeah, it's a lot of applications, a lot of opportunities for someone to charge you money to appear.
Yes.
Yeah.
The American legal system is sponsored by Craig.
I pay a lot of annual fees to states and state bars and courts and CLEs. It's one of the hazards of having a multi-state practice, but it's worth it. It gives me a lot more flexibility to take cases in multiple states.
Are you in the bar association for all these states that you're in?
No. So Wisconsin is what we call a mandatory bar. And actually, I was on the Wisconsin Board of Governors for the state bar for 4 years. I had 2 terms. I can't remember if they were 2 or 3 year terms. When I was there, we were dealing with a challenge to Wisconsin's mandatory bar, which means that in order to practice in Wisconsin, you have to be part of the Wisconsin State Bar. It's been challenged many times over the years on the grounds that they liken it to a union, and you're usually not required to be part of a union. But the challenges have always been defeated. So Wisconsin is still a mandatory bar. Minnesota and Iowa are not, and I'm not. I've been members of those bars. I don't think I'm currently members of the bars. Those aren't the states those aren't my main states to practice in, and I don't. So I basically don't spend the money to have those bar admissions. I tend to focus on other groups like the Association of Justice, which is more very focused on the type of work that I do, which is personal injury and things like that.
I wanted to ask for federal courts how you get admitted, and I think you mentioned it's an application process. It's not another bar exam or anything.
You don't have to take a test or an exam. You have to fill out an application. You usually will have to have at least one other lawyer that's already a member there sponsor you, which isn't usually too difficult. It was a little more of a challenge to find an attorney admitted to the U.S. Supreme Court when I went about that application. But yeah, usually I think they do a background check too, but you basically have to verify that the states that you're admitted in, I'm not certain about this, but I think, like, for example, to be admitted to the Federal District Court of Minnesota, I think you have to be licensed in the state of Minnesota. And I believe that to be admitted to the federal district courts in Wisconsin, you have to also be licensed in the state courts. But I might be wrong about that. But so that's kind of the only real condition usually. Usually, if you are licensed and your license isn't suspended or anything like that in the state, there usually isn't any difficulty getting admitted to the federal courts in that state.
So, what would be conditions for not having your license or having it suspended? Is it not doing your continuous legal education on time?
There's lots of ways. I mean, that's one of them. If you don't pay your bar dues on time, or you don't, satisfy your continuing education requirements. If you're ever subject to discipline, let's say you violate the trust account rules, or maybe you really mess up a client's case because you're incompetent, so to speak. You can get discipline there. I mean, theoretically, if you violate any of the rules of professional conduct that deal with, like, confidentiality, loyalty, conflicts of interest, all those things could jeopardize your license to practice law. Typically, if it's not, or if you do things outside the practice of law, let's say you get criminally charged, that can impact your bar license. It's not super uncommon for attorneys to get in trouble with, drug and alcohol problems, OWIs, maybe domestic battery type issues that can jeopardize your bar license. Either get more like a reprimand, private reprimand, public reprimand. You can have a suspension, which is usually for a period of time, or revocation is where they take it away entirely. It depends a lot on the circumstances, the nature and severity of the offense, and whether the lawyer cooperates in the process. And is this the first time? Is this the 10th time? Whatever the case may be. Yep.
So, if your license is suspended, does that mean you're debarred, or is that different?
It probably falls under the general category of disbarred. Now, if your license is suspended or revoked, it's the effect is the same. Like, you can't appear in court. You can't hold yourself out as practicing. You wouldn't be able to meet clients, and you shouldn't meet clients anyway. So I think it's all meets the qualifications of disbarred. It just the question is whether it's a temporary thing or a permanent thing. Yeah.
Would you have to get rid of the little Esquire after your name?
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to hold yourself out as having that. Although, a JD is a degree you get. So I don't know if they could make you not use that, because you get that upon graduation. But I'm not entirely. I guess I'm not entirely certain the answer to that. So most people, if you're in that situation, are probably going to keep a low profile, I would imagine. So, yeah.
So going back to the JD part, so when you finish law school, you would get your Juris Doctorate. And that doesn't mean that you can practice law, right?
Correct. Yep. It makes you eligible to practice law if you, seek admission to a particular state. Now, there are some specialty courts. I think there's a tax court. There's immigration courts. There's probably and I think there's military courts, but let's talk about immigration courts. And I'm not an immigration attorney, so I don't know this from personal experience, but I know a number of immigration lawyers. I believe you can practice in any court in the country as long as you're admitted to the immigration court. So, and I don't think you have to. Unlike what I said before, where I think you have to be admitted to the state in order to be eligible to the federal district court. I don't think that's. I'm fairly certain that's not the case for immigration. So immigration lawyers actually tend to have kind of nationwide practices or regional practices, because you can literally appear in any immigration court. The limitations tend to be more practical in terms of how far you want to be from clients, how far you want to be from the courthouses and things like that. So so beyond those practical restraints, usually I think you can practice in any immigration court if you're admitted. I think you have to seek special admission for immigration court. I don't have that. I've never tried. I don't expect I ever will.
Yeah. If we get into immigration and personal injury, that's going to be a whole. That's not something we need to look at, probably.
Yeah, I'm probably into my practice long enough where I'm not likely to shift into that. I'm more likely to go after Illinois.
Yes, harkening back
before I do that. But so yeah, that's and this all kind of came to a head because just within the last week or so, I was contacted by someone about a case that kind of required me to ask these questions because I was called by someone from Wisconsin who purchased cattle in Texas and had them shipped up to Wisconsin. So purchased in Texas, drove through multiple states to get here, and we're going to be here in Wisconsin. And so the seller is in Texas, right? And so I was looking at that as far as what are the possible claims that they might have, and where can they be brought, and that's kind of a topic for another podcast when we talk about jurisdiction and choice of law. But the long and the short of it is, I can't just show up in Texas or file a lawsuit in Texas because I don't have a Texas license, right? I can bring a case in Wisconsin if I think there's a basis to do so. I could try to sue this person from Texas if I think the court can have jurisdiction over them. I could also, if necessary, either I brought it into federal court, or sometimes what's common, if you sue an out-of-state party, they may very well seek to move it to federal court. We call that diversity jurisdiction, which allows an out-of-state person to bring a case to federal court on the theory that they're likely to get mistreated as the out-of-stater by local judges and juries and things like that. There's different requirements for that, but so that is something where maybe I could start a case in state court, Wisconsin, but the other side could come in and try to move it to federal court, and then we'd be, then I would have to be in the Western District of Wisconsin, which fortunately I'm admitted there. So, but sometimes that's not possible, or I could try that and the court says, no, Wisconsin's not the proper venue. This needs to be brought in Texas. Then you're like, well, I either need to find a Texas attorney to handle the case, or maybe work on it with me, and I seek pro hoc vice admission or something like that. So that's how it works out in practice. Or, and this is very common, you'll get a call from someone. Maybe they know you or they've heard of you, and if it's in a state that I can't practice in, a lot of times lawyers will just refer them to someone else, and that's very normal. And it's not a bad idea to have a lawyer that find a lawyer that and trust that you can recommend to someone. So we do that all the time. And
there's a little incentive in that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Lawyers are permitted to share in the fees. We usually call them referral fees. The clients have to know about it. Clients have to approve it, but that's fairly common, at least in personal injury type cases.
Well, if you start incurring a lot of those referral fees for Illinois, then you know what to do.
Yeah, I suppose that's the case. Now, I'm guessing, I don't know this, not to pick on the Illinois people, but I'm assuming there's a lot of red tape. I'm sure getting a license there, I'm sure the application is extensive and expensive. I'm guessing the CLEs are not cheap either. But I've only had a couple of cases that involved Illinois, and in each of those, I did actually get pro hoc vice admission in one case down in the Quad Cities, and I just worked with a lawyer I knew from, I think, Davenport, actually, who's licensed there. So I have done that, but I think it's only been once or twice in the 20 years I've been practicing. So if that's, unless it starts happening every year, you don't really need to get admission. You can just seek pro hoc vice admission.
Call it a day.
Yep.
Awesome.
So anything else? So just kind of looking over our notes here. For people that are just deeply enthralled by this, I'll have a separate Substack article that'll kind of lay this out a little bit and answer some of the questions that people might have that we didn't talk about. And so we'll put a link to the Substack. I really want to encourage people, if you're not already doing so, to check out check out the Substack. I put a lot of stuff we talk about in the videos. We post the videos there, but I also tend to be a little more detailed, fleshed out article with citations and things like that. So you can go over, you can check out the Substack. You can just go over there and view it. If you want to get notified, it just costs you your email. So every time I post something, you get emailed about it. So I encourage people, if you're not already there, go ahead and check out my Substack. I'd appreciate that. It doesn't cost you anything. It just gives me an easy way to share stuff with people in something other than video. And you can leave comments over there and things like that. Or if you have a legal question, if you have a question, you can always leave it on the video. But if you have a legal issue, if you need to talk to an attorney about a possible case, don't leave those in comments. Those are not confidential and privileged. You want to send us an email, call us, text us. That information is always in the descriptions. Be happy to talk to you. There's no cost for those consults. And if I can help you, I'll help you. And if I can't, I'll try to find someone who can.
Yeah. Well, thanks for mentioning that, Craig. If you wanted to search the Substack, is there a way to search you? What's your name on Substack for people to search?
It's a good question. Lacrosse Lawyer, I think.
Yeah.
I think if you search Lacrosse Lawyer, you'll find me there. There's a link. There'll always be a link in the description. Or if you go in, I think there's a link to my link tree. The Substack is there, but I think it's under Lacrosse Lawyer on Substack.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for giving us your time, and any legal students, you can put in the comments.
Yeah.
How sharp Craig still is after 20 plus years.
Slowing down a little bit, but the mind's still working pretty good. So, yeah, I'll be happy to help anyone, answer any questions that people have in the comments, or if you have things that we didn't answer that you're really curious about, maybe we'll do another episode. Just let us know there. Otherwise, yeah, thank you, Leah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, everyone.
See ya.
Have a good one.
Bye.